Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jill Curcio from the CAE Program Office. Today we have Dr. Bryson Payne from the University of North Georgia. He will be giving you a presentation about reverse engineering for ethical hackers. Just a few administrative things. If you have a question, please feel free to put it either in the Q&A box or the chat window. All of your mics are muted, so if you do have a question, we just ask that you put it in there, and Dr. Payne will address it as he is able. Thank you very much. Bryson, over to you.
Thanks, Jill, and thanks to the whole CAE and Capital Tech team. We're really grateful for the opportunity to get to speak today for the Tech Talk. Thanks to everybody who's joining online. I'm Bryson Payne. I'm the Director of the Center for Cyber Ops Education here at the University of North Georgia, Fellow Center of Academic Excellence. I'm going to talk to you today about reverse engineering for ethical hackers. So just a little bit quickly about me. I have my PhD in computer science from Georgia State. I spent 6 years as a chief information officer over IT before switching back over to the faculty side. But I've been teaching for 22 years total in the university system in computer science, information systems, and cybersecurity. Some of you know me if you have Gen Cyber programs that use my Python book, Teach Your Kids to Code. That's my one claim to fame among the CAE community, is I wrote a really cool book about 5 years ago that No Starch Press did a great job publishing and getting out there. And I know some good friends across the CAE community and across the Gen Cyber camps that have used Teach Your Kids to Code. I do have a third book coming out this June called Hacking for Kids. And then my claim to fame for today is I'm the coach of the #1 NSA Codebreaker Challenge team, the UNG Cyberhawks. We're really proud of how hard the students worked in the Codebreaker Challenge. There were 532 schools registered for the challenge. A terrific top 10. We're honored to be a part of a really cool list of fellow centers of academic excellence for the most part that took part in this challenge. But it's open to any university, any college, and I think they even allowed some secondary schools in this year. That it's just a great challenge, a great competition for students to get involved in reverse engineering, cyber operations, and see if that's something that they might enjoy. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is how we built a team that was able this year to place #1 in the NSA Codebreaker. We started out about 3 years ago by designing a reverse engineering special topics course. We offered that 2 years ago, and then this past year, we have a lot of ethical hackers. We have a computer security class that focuses on ethical hacking. But we had not had reverse engineering, and we're not a cyber ops school, or we weren't until we started offering this course, and now we're looking at a master's in cyber operations. But now we've got it as a regular part of the course catalog. In fact, this fall, I think I'll be teaching 2 sections of reverse engineering. So what I wanted to share with you guys is our secret recipe, or our secret sauce, some of the things that we did to get reverse engineering started. I won't focus on just the NSA Codebreaker, but I'll tell you it's the best resource out there to get students excited about reverse engineering and about the kinds of jobs that they can do in cyber. Reverse engineering is just one specialization. We all know the NIST cyber, or the NICE cyber workforce framework. There are lots of roles that people can go into in cyber, but reverse engineering malware, or just the entire field of reverse engineering and cyber operations is a lot of fun. And so what I wanted to show students was that what reverse engineering was, that they could do it, and that it was actually fun. So I actually started it in reverse. I started by reverse engineering Solitaire and command.exe, and then we graduated from there to disassembling Windows, Linux, and even Android malware with Ghidra and some tools that you can get completely free online, the Flare VM, all the way to creating keygens or decryptors for ransomware. And I'm going to share just some of those steps along the way in hopes that we can expand the community of schools that are participating in the Codebreaker Challenge. It's too much fun to keep it to ourselves. And I can tell you, anybody on the call from among those 532 schools can tell you it's a great way to get students involved outside the classroom in reverse engineering and cyber operations. So here's a little fun 6-step how to win the NSA Codebreaker. #1, create a reverse engineering course. #2, make it fun. Number 3, placed in the top 10. And if you work hard, you can do that. We were number 3 in 2018. We had not placed in the top 20, 50, or even 100 probably before that, after that first reverse engineering class. Then come back, add more to the reverse engineering course once you have worked through the code breaker, and your students have come back with feedback on what they were lacking, what they needed more of. We decided to add a little bit more to the course, and step 5, win, and step 6, repeat, hopefully. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but I'm going to share with you what we did to make it fun and how we added a little bit more to the course over time. So the flow of the course started on day 1. Actually, I had them hack Solitaire a little bit. I'm going to do a demo in just a moment, and we'll actually see what I mean by hacking Solitaire. I just mean scoring 1 billion points or 2 billion points, just to demonstrate a few things about how malware works on your system, and about how we're going to approach reverse engineering malware, running a debugger and hooking into that process, stopping it along the way, changing values in memory so that we can trick the ransomware, trick the malware into thinking that it's working when it's not, or thinking that we gave it the decrypt code when we didn't. I'm going to do a quick demo of some malware reverse engineering. We use some challenges that we got from Escalate. Point 3 has an online capture the flag training system they call Escalate.
Made that into a bar.
Oh, hello? You guys able to hear all right? Okay, sorry. So we've got, I'll do a little bit of a demo of just some malware reverse engineering using some neutralized ransomware, some special purpose built. You can build your own, but there's some really good CTFs and really good example pieces of software out there. And then tackle progressively tougher malware, ransomware, starting with strings and floss, doing basic static analysis, getting a little bit more in depth with Ghidra and IDA, then doing some active work with Ali Debug, WinBag, x64 debugger. And then we moved on from there to Linux, Android, just based on preference, based on time, based on the interest of the students. We did a good bit more on Android and Linux this past semester because the Codebreaker Challenge used some Android and Linux, of course, in that mobile app. So then one of the coolest things we added this past year was reverse engineering all the way to the point of building a decryptor for some of the ransomware samples that we ran into. So we just wrote some very short Python scripts that would use the reverse engineering work that we did in Ghidra to reverse out the C code. We turned that into Python and then reversed it so we could find the flag or get the decryption key from a piece of neutralized malware. And then we can circle back to more advanced malware analysis with some of the other tools. So here are the resources that I used. The textbook, I used the one that a lot of you use out there, Practical Malware Analysis by Sikorsky and the team. Really good book. There's also Practical Reverse Engineering by Bruce Dang, and then Reversing. There are tons of good books out there, but those are 3 good ones to get you started if you haven't had a reverse engineering course on your campus before. And then, of course, 2 really awesome resources that we used. Point 3's Escalate platform, I'll talk about a touch more when we get to some of the samples. And then the NSA Codebreaker Challenge is not just a great competition, it's a great learning experience. The students learn. It's an opportunity for you as a faculty member to try out new things. I think those 2 together really were our secret sauce, but the Codebreaker is part of what made UNG stand out this year. And then team communication, we use Discord. So the same thing that our esports teams use to chat when they're prepping for a game or when they're doing the debrief after a game. Discord was a great way for students to support one another. A lot of peer mentoring. We had a team mentor, one of our graduates who was working on his graduate degree, Jacob Elliott. In fact, I saw Jacob in the list of attendees. I owe a huge shout out to Jacob Elliott. He was the team mentor for this year's group. And in fact, he was such a good mentor after he got his master's in December. we hired him on to teach. He's actually teaching one of our courses in the cyber track. And we're grateful to have him on our faculty as well. But that Discord app gave students a chance to communicate offline or communicate outside the classroom after hours. I would see students ask and answer questions at 2 and 3 in the morning. And that's definitely not something that I was always available to do, although every now and then I checked in. So the virtual reverse engineering environment that we built, you can use either VMware or VirtualBox in our classroom labs. We have VMware for the students' home machines. They were able to use VirtualBox. We got the same free Windows VM that you probably use if you've done any kind of ethical hacking or reverse engineering. You go out to modern.ie and grab the Windows 10 virtual machine. Courseware, Microsoft, Academic, or whatever that one's called now, Azure for Education. So we can also give the students access to their own full ISO, their own DVD. They can purchase it through our university system. But Windows 10, simple VM. We added the Flare VM on top of that. That's the FireEye Labs, I think advanced reverse engineering. Somebody can maybe correct me on the question and answer what the rest of Flare stands for. But just do a search for Flare VM, and you can see the setup there from FireEye. The newest versions now include Ghidra, which is really nice. That's a tremendous tool released by NSA out into the open source community. And it really makes reverse engineering, especially when you get to the step of reversing code back into C and turning it into Python. That makes it really a lot easier. So everything up there has been free so far. Remnix, terrific reverse engineering distribution of Linux. And then we used Kali because we were used to using that in our ethical hacking courses. Some of the things you may want to add on top of that, volatility. I'm going to talk to you about Cheat Engine in just a second, Mimikatz, and in our case, because we had some old Windows XP virtual machines around, we added Solitaire, and I'll show you why here in just one second. So one of the challenges, the first time I taught this course was really getting students interested from the beginning, because typically in reverse engineering, you have to do a lot of pre-work, especially considering we don't have a C course anymore. At UNG, we lost our faculty member to retirement who had taught our C programming class. And so reverse engineering, when you haven't had a C programming class, is a little bit of a challenge. Understanding registers, understanding some of just the core reverse engineering skills, both inside the debugger, looking at your reverse engineered code in a disassembler. It's really a challenge, and I didn't want it to be so much heavy lifting at the beginning that we lost a lot of the students, both figuratively and literally. I wanted to make sure that the first time we offered it as a special topics, we would have enough students to make a class. And we started with 19, I believe we finished with 17. So I hit the goal in recruiting some students in and in keeping the majority of those students throughout the semester. So one of the ways that I tried to approach that was showing them some really quick, easy win, low-hanging fruit examples that might interest them in how malware attacks legitimate software on your system, and in how our tools work in reverse engineering, from a debugger to a disassembler. I really wanted to show a couple of fast examples that would get them engaged. So the very first example there you see on my screen, my Solitaire has a score of 1,000,000,010 points. So for those of you who are OCD like me, you might want to see that at exactly 1 billion, and I'll show you how to do that here in 1 second. But I want to start with that demo today. I'll have time for maybe 1 or 2 very short demos, but I wanted to work those into the presentation because I wanted to give faculty on the call an idea of how you could make even a pitch for reverse engineering among your current students who are taking forensics or ethical hacking or any other cyber-related courses, because I think it's really engaging. It's just fun to do with the students. And then if you can build up enough interest and build a reverse engineering course like we were able to do as a special topic, and then eventually turn it into a catalog course, I think it'll give you a really good foundation for not just doing well in the NSA Codebreaker, but for turning out students that have those reverse engineering skills that are really valuable in industry right now. So what I'm going to do is switch over to my reverse engineering workstation, virtual machine. There we go. You can see I have a reverse engineering Windows box. It has just the Flare VM installed. So I'm doing malware reverse engineering. Both of those links we'll have available in the presentation. You can download the slides, of course, after. You can go back and watch this presentation later on as well. But one or two things that I've added in here is a set of practice files. We have our practice files from the book. We have some of the escalate challenges that we'll come to in a moment. And then, of course, I have a few really fun things like Solitaire. So this is the very first example that I do with my college students, but it's also a demo that we did in our Gen Cyber Camp to give students a feel for what reverse engineering was all about, just to give them ideas for next steps. So I've done this with everybody from high school students to college, my college students. I do a little bit of this as a recruiting technique in my ethical hacking course, and the students really like doing this. So I'm going to run Solitaire, and then I'm going to run an application called Cheat Engine. Some of you may know Cheat Engine, some of you may not. It's a really good way to get banned from your favorite massive online multiplayer game. We do have to tell students, of course, we're doing ethical hacking, so we're going to use this in the safety of this lab. But Cheat Engine will actually act like a debugger, like an editor, like honestly, like a piece of malware would as well, and hook into some processes running in Windows, and then allow us to look around in that program and change some values. In my case, what I would really like to change is my score. So if I'm remember how to play Solitaire just a little bit here, I might be able to score a few points, but no matter how hard I try, I'm never going to reach 1 billion. So what I want to show you is how to use Cheat Engine to hook into Solitaire. And this serves not just as a fun example, a little demo for the students. It really does demonstrate some of the concepts of malware in general, hooking into an active Windows process and injecting code or making changes. But it also gives you a foundation for some of the skills we build throughout the rest of the reverse engineering course, because you need to be able to use a debugger, use tools to alter the flow of the program or change values in memory to trick a piece of malware into unpacking or whatever it might be. So I'll show you in Cheat Engine here with Solitaire running. I'm going to use the open process tool. And just like any other piece of software on your Windows computer or any piece of malware, some illegitimate software that's on your computer, the Windows API opens itself up for an application to look around and see what's going on. And so we find the Solitaire app in here, just like your virus or your Trojan might find an active instance of Microsoft Word or your browser. So I'm going to open up a connection. I'm going to hook into Solitaire. And so if this were a piece of malware, it could start to change values. It could start to overwrite information. It could inject some code, cause buffer overflow, any of the other things that we're familiar with. But I want to demo specifically changing one value, that score of 20, into something bigger. So one great thing about Cheat Engine or any tool that you would use, debugger, we can do a search for values in memory. So I'm going to do a search for any place that has this value, 20, stored. If I do a first scan, you're going to see there are a ton of just random occurrences of the number 20 in memory. You would expect that in a program, even as small as Solitaire. It's a pretty big executable file. So in memory, it has dozens of 20s, but that was my first scan. What I'm going to do is change the score, see if I can raise my score just a bit. And now if I look down through this list, I'm going to see some of those 20s have changed, but I can make that even easier. I can say 25, do a next scan. And there were 2 places in memory where this value changed. So I'm still not done with my search quite yet. Sometimes you'll luck out after one change. I see one of these values changed to 30, and I can just verify that with a next scan. And you can see I've got a memory address 427DB0. What I'm going to do is double click on that address and bring it up down into my view down below. You can see it's a 4-byte value. That's pretty promising. That means that we might even be able to hold a couple of billion points as our score. So I double click on the value field over here, and I'm going to try changing this to 1 billion. 1 0 0 0 4 5 6 7 8 9 1 billion points. I got the number of zeros right there. So you notice it doesn't change instantly, but if we can refresh the screen or if we can score another point, you see our score has jumped all of a sudden to a much nicer value. Well, while that's just fun, literally fun and games in this case, that's a good demo of just some of the capabilities on any regular Windows workstation, any Windows application. Another application can hook into that Windows process. First of all, find the process, but there are certain APIs that it's using. So there are going to be certain strings, for example, that we can look for in that executable. Like Cheat Engine has to be able to list open processes. It has to be able to read and write to memory. It has to be able to access those values so they can overwrite. So if I were reverse engineering this to keep it going for a long time, I might put a description with this address and say score, variable, something like that, so I can come back to it. But the next time I run this program, that address is going to be different, of course, and that's a good example of how memory gets allocated dynamically. So the next time I come back, I'm not going to find it in the same location. If I really want to make a permanent change, I'm going to have to go into the executable file itself and use one of our other tools, IDA or Ghidra, and make some changes permanently to that file. You can even use a Hex Editor. One of the other applications that we enjoy working with early on in the class, just to demonstrate a bit of that, is just a simple Hex Editor. So I run command.exe through a Hex Editor, because we've just shown with the Solitaire example how to change a program that's running live in memory, but we haven't made a change to an application on disk, because the next time I come back, that program is not going to have my score of 1 billion points. I'll have to run Cheat Engine all over again. To really make a change, I need to change the executable itself. So let me open up. Well, I've already searched down to the term exactly, but let's say that I want to just take a look inside cmd.exe without trying to reverse engineer the command prompt or the Windows terminal. I just want to be able to change one command. So let's say we, instead of saying echo, we wanted to say ego. So ego hello. I didn't get copyright permission or trademark permission from Eggo Waffles, but I'll use this one for right now. I would come in my Hex Editor and I might want to do a search. So I'll find, you can see I've already been doing this as a demo for my students. I'll look for the Unicode string, echo, and I'm going to search down, and I found one. And in fact, that looks like it could be the list of some of the strings that we want to look at in our application. If I change that ECHO, and I know this is small font on the screen there, if I change that from echo to ego and save, or apply a patch, in this case, to that program, if I run this local version, and I just copied this from Windows System 32, if I copy that CMD file out and then come out to my command line, if I say ego, hello, CAEs, now instead of an echo command, I can use my ego command. So I hope those are two kind of fun examples for everybody to consider, either working, if you do some reverse engineering with younger students, or if you do if you want to get people interested in reverse engineering in an ethical hacking course, or if you just want to add this to a class that you already use. Those are fun, basic examples, but they show some of the important concepts. So we went from changing a value running in memory, like we might want to do if we were wanting to trick a piece of malware running on our operating system or on our virtual machine. And then we made a change to an executable on disk and changed a command. So now instead of echo, or the echo command, I can EGGO, and I'm down here in Georgia, so I'll say howdy y'all. And you can see we've had a permanent impact on that program. Well, in the same way, a piece of malware can make a change to a program file on disk. So we've actually demonstrated some pretty useful concepts. So I'm going to switch back over to my PowerPoint presentation. There we go. I'll give that a second to get out to everybody. So I showed our day 2. So after we do the introduction to the course with Solitaire and get people interested in saying, oh, wow, I didn't know that you could change a value in memory in a program from inside another program, which is really what some of our malware does. We, of course, just injected one value or changed one value in memory, but you could inject some additional bytes here. You could overwrite, you could run outside this one value and overwrite an entire section of programming code. So these are really useful examples and foundational fun things that you can do with students. Then we can change something on disk and have an echo command instead of our echo command with just a couple of quick keystrokes in a hex editor. So then we start to progress through different levels of reverse engineering. We start with static analysis. We use things like string and floss. In some cases, you might want to use virus total and just see if there's already a hash of that particular piece of malware out on the internet. The book comes with several pieces of malware that you can use to get a little bit of early practice. You move on up from strings and floss to IDA, Ghidra, so you can do some disassembly. And Ghidra is terrific, gives you the ability to decompile really fast and easy right there in the screen. We move on to dynamic analysis using debuggers. We start to change some of those values in memory, change the program flow, rewrite the code in memory. Those are really useful skills to be able to build. And any of the debuggers that we use from OllyDebug, WinBag, X64 debugger, they allow you to work through some of those. And I think we're doing good on time, so we may be able to see one more quick piece. And then after you've gone down to those low levels, you can build back up to behavioral analysis by running ProcMon, Process Hacker, Redshot, ProcDot, some of the tools that you'll see if you take the reverse engineering malware course from SANS, or you can find great tutorials out on YouTube to help students get a little extra practice. So I turned this into a pyramid just because I'd not found anybody who had a graphic like this. I may have seen it before, so if I stole it from somebody on the call, you can give me a good reference for it. But you spend the base of the pyramid is static analysis, not just because it may be one of the first things you do. You might actually use an automated sandbox to gather indicators of compromise. But it's one place where you spend an inordinate amount of time if you really want to do full analysis just using static analysis techniques. So you've got quick options like strings, floss, P, Studio, virus total possibly. Then you've got some slower static analysis tools, but much more powerful with IDA and Ghidra. Then you build up to the ability to do some dynamic analysis. You might spend a lot less time watching the flow of a program in memory and trying to change a few values, but it's still a good bit of time compared to using some of the fast tools like Process Hacker, ProcMon, Redshot, ProcDot to see changes that are happening on the system. That includes all your debuggers. You got your Android Studio and Android debugger. You've got other tools like volatility, redline. And then we move up to seeing the impact of that piece of malware on your system. So some of the behavioral aspects and behavioral analysis of that piece of malware. Process Hacker, ProcMon, Redshot, ProcDot, using Wireshark to observe network communication. Maybe using your Remnix virtual machine with fake DNS so that if a piece of malware is trying to call out to the internet, you can intercept those. Use INetSim. You can even respond to some of those internet requests. Maybe it's expecting an executable. If it's a downloader, you can provide a harmless executable in INetSim running on Remnix that will allow your malware to think it successfully achieved its objective of downloading a piece of malware, but really it just downloaded your stub program so that you can analyze the behavior. Those are really useful tools for finding indicators of compromise so that you can get a piece of malware off the network or understand where it came in and either plug your firewall or look for those patterns using some of your other security monitoring tools. And then, of course, we have automated analysis. It's at the top of the pyramid, not because that's what we're aiming toward. It's just that is really fast. It doesn't take as much time as those other processes, but we may only get limited information. For example, if you send it out to hybrid analysis, you're probably only going to get some of the information. And of course, we can't do that when we're talking about sensitive networks, defense, critical infrastructure. We don't want to submit things out to virus total or hybrid analysis, especially if they're brand new malware. We don't want to alert the adversary that we have their malware and that we're reverse engineering it. You can, of course, have your own Cuckoo Sandbox or some other in-house sandbox tools to do some of that analysis, and that can help you with indicators of compromise to stop a real infection. I did want to mention Point 3's solution, Escalate. If anybody's ever seen ittakesAhuman.com, it is a paid CTF platform, but Point 3 does capture the flag events for universities, for schools. I've seen some CTFs out there that Point 3 supported. So you can usually register for those for free or for very little money, and you get access to the same challenges. But Point 3 has been a really good partner for UNG. We do have some paid seats in the Escalate platform. It gives us Windows, Linux, Android, both 32-bit and 64-bit, even ARM malware, and more. It's not just a reverse engineering platform or reverse engineering training, capture the flag set of exercises. They have forensics, they have network forensics, they have some exploit development challenges if you've got a more advanced cyber operations team. And I can put an email address up there so you guys can get in touch with somebody at Point 3. They do an education discount like most vendors do. But it lets you, the great thing about the way the Point 3 challenges are set up is they start with very basic static analysis. You use strings and floss, and then you progress to actually needing to disassemble. Then you need to debug and change the program flow. So, and you get all the way to decompiling and having to write your own Python code to be able to decrypt neutralized piece of ransomware. You could build your own. For those of you out there that have similar budgets to mine, that start and end with the number 0, when we were building this program, we didn't have that much funding. You can build your own malware samples just by hiding flags, just like the Point 3 examples. And I'll try to switch over and show just one or two of those really fast, just to give you an idea of how these work. There we go. So what I'm going to do is show you in my practice files here under Escalate. I've got some of the examples of executables that we can run, and I might want to rename this something shorter, lab1.exe, for example. So if I just pull up a command prompt window and naively were to run this piece of neutralized malware, there's no real malware effect in any of this, I would just get something like this. It would say, well, here's the usage. You need to provide a password or a flag. So this is sort of like the password to decrypt your ransomware. So if I try running, if I cd into this folder first, there we go, so that I'm there locally. If I try just running lab1 and provide a password, that's not going to be the password, of course, and it's going to tell me I'm not leaked enough. The team at Point 3 is as geeky as we are here, so works. It's a lot of fun. But this, we mentioned static analysis might be one way that we would attack a program, a piece of malware on our system. So I could run something like strings on that lab1 and then see what the output looks like. Of course, that's going to take a long time to run because there are going to be a ton of strings in a real piece of malware. In fact, it may run so long that it'd be better for me to kill it and come back. So let's say I want to just look for those strings that are a certain length. So I might say strings, at least length 10, or in my case, I know that these are at least 16 characters long on this piece of malware. Then what it's going to do is run strings. It's going to loop through and kill a few other applications that are running on here. I think I may have another command prompt window open there. It will find just strings that are hidden in this program. So some of those may be our API calls that we were talking about that we might want to watch out for. So if it can read and write from memory, if it can read and write files, and this is not supposed to be a piece of software that should be able to do that, then we can at least start to make some educated guesses about whether we might have a piece of malware. And unfortunately, the law of demos is in effect, so my virtual machine is running too slowly to show us that list of strings. But for this first piece of malware, that level 1 in escalate for the 32-bit, it would actually give us a flag value in memory. So what would decrypt this piece of ransomware or this piece of malware, or what would neutralize it would be the password, the flag that's hidden in plain text in memory. Then you move on to level 2 and you've got something that's not just plain text, maybe it's stored character by character. So instead of running strings, we'd run floss, all the way till the next level when you really have to open it up inside of IDA or Ghidra to look for an XORed value. Well, you might be able to run floss on that one as well. But you get more and more abilities with each level that you build. And like I mentioned in the presentation, and I'll switch back over here right now, you could build your own progressively better and better pieces of malware, but Escalate has all of that already done for you. Then one really fun thing we added this past time was doing a little bit more Python programming. So as we got into more advanced pieces of malware, we wanted to be able to decrypt that malware file without having the full reverse engineering toolkit on every workstation in every business that you might run into as a reverse engineer or as a malware analyst. So one goal would be to write a key generator or a decryptor, especially for ransomware, where it would look through and see if it can find how it's generating that ransomware key. We can't just guess the key for a 256-bit AES key, but we might be able to find in the program how it developed that key. Is it a hash of some set of values like your machine name, your IP address, the name of the first hard drive on the machine, things like that. Once we can find how it sets that key or how it develops that key in memory by disassembling or decompiling, we can use Python to automatically search through every piece of that malware or that specific strain of malware for the unique way. Maybe it has a key that it uses or a seed for the random generator that we can use as the decrypt key or the password or the flag. And then anybody would be able to run that Python program and decrypt their files on their PC. You can actually find examples out there on Bleeping Computer and ID Ransomware, a few other sites where they attempt to do this for real malware infections. And then that's one of my next steps for staying up to date, getting students engaged in this beyond the class. First of all, the first great tool is previous year's Codebreaker challenges. I know some schools don't teach reverse engineering in the fall that would coexist with a Codebreaker challenge, but the previous challenges are still out there. And they're great resources for starting to do some reverse engineering, especially really advanced reverse engineering, because the Codebreaker progresses really hard, really fast. There's some great blogs like Bleeping Computer, ID Ransomware sites that do this, where they try to take apart the latest ransomware. There are, of course, reverse engineering malware mailing lists and forums. Another great thing for students is bug bounty programs, BugCrowd, HackerOne, and others. And then, of course, you can lead from reverse engineering into firmware, reverse engineering car hacking, IoT, medical devices, and even developing exploits if you're in that cyber operations track. So my closing thoughts before I take a couple of questions, don't forget the value of extra credit. Students will work really hard for a few points of extra credit, or if you're really generous, maybe allow them to exempt the midterm or the final. I'll tell you, if they could do 6 out of the 7 codebreaker tasks, your reverse engineering students probably do deserve to exempt their final exam. But a little extra credit from some of the other courses, since there was a database element to this last semester, a mobile application development element, even those instructors can offer just a little extra credit, a point or two. You'd be surprised how hard students will work sometimes. Having a team mentor who's a peer or a graduate student, I want to give one more shout out to Mr. Jacob Elliott, who just finished his master's degree back in December. He was a terrific mentor for our students, answering those questions at 2 and 3 in the morning because he was working around and playing with the codebreaker himself. Introduce other faculty on your team, even if you're the reverse engineering or the ethical hacking or forensics or whatever your specialization might be. Get some of the other faculty involved. The codebreaker is usually broad enough that it includes some SQL injections. So you get some database work that people can do, mobile apps in this last one, but Linux, Windows operating systems, lots of opportunities to draw in other courses, architecture. Develop close relationships with your IT team. Putting a VM with some malware and password protected zip files on our network took years of building relationship with our IT team, but we have a very specialized and firewalled off virtual lab that we have available here on campus. And then invite guest speakers. We had FBI computer intrusion squad speakers, some industry speakers, NSA, FBI is everywhere, all 50 states. Industry, you may have companies close by, but even if you don't, you can invite somebody in by Skype or Zoom. And then this is a tough part, but weekly team meetings, in addition to that Discord team chat, getting people together face to face so that they can share ideas. Challenges like the codebreaker are great because every student gets their own executable, their own files, their own network capture. So everybody has to do their own work, but they can help each other learn and grow. So I just wanted to say thanks to the NSA, especially the Codebreaker Challenge team and the CAE team for this talk today. Thanks for attending. I hope to see more and more schools in the Codebreaker 2020. It's too great a resource out there for us all not to take advantage of. And I did a small plug for my Hacking for Kids book. It is on pre-sale now on Amazon. But I'll take a couple of moments. I've already hit right at time, but I want to offer to take a few questions if I can. Jill, is that all right?
Yeah, that's no problem. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat. Thanks.
Well, I hope that I have given you guys some ideas for how you might get some students interested in reverse engineering. It is a really fun, exciting next area, especially for really good ethical hackers, really good students. If they're low-level coders, they like C, C++. Please share how to access the recording presentation files. Okay. That link actually will still work. Jill, do you want to explain how to get back to the recording and the presentation slides?
Yes, so those will be available on the CAE community site by Monday. I will put the link in the chat. And then also, Bryson, you do have a few questions in the chat. It's a different box in the Q&A.
Okay, let me see if I can open chat more. Oh, I see chat now. Sorry, I didn't have that open. There we go. So Microsoft Azure Dev Tools for Teaching, yes. See that. Would you mind sharing a weekly schedule for the topics, lab resources for students apart from the Codebreaker? Well, really those VMs and then some of the exercises. I'll add the email address for and the site for Escalate, the point3.net application that we used. Yes, I think it would work great for online classes. In fact, we're considering building an online version of the reverse engineering course the way that I teach it. The only thing is you might have to set up your virtual machine in NetLab or some other centralized resource for students to log into. I'll put some of these other answers in the slides. Kind of difficult getting a web link. I'll make sure that I put any resources inside there. Good. Any other questions, Jill, that I missed?
Nope, not that I see.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody for being on today. Thank you very much, Khaled. I hope that I gave you some ideas for making a reverse engineering course engaging, or even just a special presentation to your cyber teams on your campuses. Thank you very much. I hope everybody has a great semester, and I hope to see a lot of you in the Codebreaker Challenge in the fall.